Hi there, Sandy Huntress here for Create Along, bringing you a really cute polymer clay project using products from the Ripples and Waves box. Today we're going to make this sweet little photo frame. It comes together really easily using the Waves border mold. So when I got this month's Create Along box with this Waves border mold, I just was in love with it. I thought it was the coolest thing, and I immediately started playing with it and thought that a picture frame would be a really cute thing to make. What I have here is some white clay, and I wanted, because it's a waves border, I was thinking kind of beachy, sandy look, a little distressed. I'm going to use some of that great blue paint that came in the box to add to the beachy look later. So what I did was I mixed in a little bit of embossing powder. It doesn't have to be this brand, it can be any. I just was thinking sandy, beachy colors, and I used just about what I could scoop on a popsicle stick and mixed it in. You don't have to do that. I just liked that it had a little bit something different going on and wasn't just plain white. So some of this clay I've rolled out into sheets, and we'll use that in a minute. But for now, we're going to make our mold. Now this is kind of a soft, squishy mold. It releases beautifully. What you can't do that we often do is take a blade to cleanly cut the back. It's too squishy for that. So I figured out another way, which in some ways is actually a lot easier. So at this point, it requires a little bit of trial and error to figure out how much clay you want to put into the mold. Just go ahead and roll yourself a nice log of clay and make it a little bit smaller than you think you might want. Go ahead and start pressing it into the mold. I'm using the medium size one here. I tried it on the small, and boy, it was a lot of work. It was so tiny, it was tough to keep it cleanly in the mold. Press it down so that you can see the mold is entirely filled, and then kind of just pull back with your finger. You'll reveal that shadow line right there, and you'll know that you have a nice clean edge to your design. And go ahead and repeat. Just keep pressing to fill and then pulling back to clean it up until you have the whole mold filled. This is why you want to have a log that is pretty close to exactly the amount of clay you need, so that any excess can just kind of be scooched onto the back here, because it's just difficult to come in and trim this the way it's shaped. It helps to work on a firm surface. That's why I have this tile here. So you can clean off if there's a lot of excess with the blade, but you can't get real close and flush like with some other border molds that I've seen. But I do love that these release the clay beautifully. I didn't have to put any release in here at all, and it just came out perfectly. Once you have that all filled, flip it over. Try not to stretch the clay. Just gently let it fall. I know it's hard to show you on camera here. Fall out of the mold. So have it upside down so that you have gravity doing the work. And just kind of gently pop it out. Okay. What a beautiful pattern. I just love that. Alright, I am going to switch to a square tile here. What you'll need next is a circle cutter. This is a 2-inch round cutter. It's from this set, which is wonderful because there are so many sizes so close to each other. You'll see why that's important in a moment. I'm just going to use my cutter to get my frame perfectly round. There'll be a little bit of overlap. Now this end one got distorted, so it's good that that one needs to go. Just trim that off. And also I'm going to bevel that and trim off like a wedge so that it will fit neatly over the other piece. Make sure that's all tucked nicely around my cutter, my cutter. Alright, looks like that's going to go there. So I'm going to cut this also off at an angle. This is a good place to add a little liquid clay because you don't want to press so hard that it smushes your design, but you do want them to stick. And you bake it just like this with the circle cutter in place. And you end up with something like this. Now to make the rest of your frame, you'll need some other circle cutters that are actually pretty close in size. That's why I love this set for this. What you'll need is a cutter that is just slightly bigger than that opening. So this is a 2 1/4 inch. Then you'll need another one that's bigger than that but smaller than the outer edge of the frame. So if I put it like this, you shouldn't be able to see it on the outside of the frame. Although if you wanted to, you could certainly make like a big, make a backing sheet, cut it this size, and that would be part of your frame, and it would show. You could make it a different color or something, but I didn't want mine to. Now that sheet is going to be the part that will support your photo. I've rolled out this clay on about a number 7, a fairly thin, not the thinnest, but a pretty thin size on my pasta machine. So what I have here is a 2 1/2 inch. That's the one that will fit here. And then I'll put a 2 1/4 inch on the inside of that. So I'm just going to I'm looking at this carefully, trying to make sure I have a pretty even 1/8 of an inch all around. Go ahead and cut that out. And I'm going to leave this in place on the tile. Just take away the excess. Then I need one more that is the outer dimension, so 2 1/2. This will be the backing. And if this isn't making sense, I have pieces that I'll show you in just a moment. Once you cut these out, you'll want to bake them. And what I would recommend you do is get some deli paper and just cover them with another tile while they bake, so that they will stay nice and flat. You can peel them off and make sure that both sides aren't shiny, but it's not really necessary as long as one side isn't shiny, especially on the backing. Because you're baking them on the tiles, and the tiles need time to warm up in the oven before the clay can even start baking, I would add an extra ½ an hour to the time. I actually baked my pieces for an hour. So you bake all 3 pieces, your ring that will hold your photo and your backing. And your frame, of course, your waves frame. Now here are a couple I made earlier, and I made them in a darker color just so you can see what's going on. And the way this is going to work is this will get glued onto this, but with some modification. I'll show you that in a moment. And then this will get glued onto the back with the non-shiny side out. If you want your photo to be permanently in here, and here I have a photo of my granddaughter that I cut out, and I just used the 2 inch cutter and cut around it. If you want your photo to be permanently in the frame, you can just glue it in there. That's so cute. But if you want to be able to take it in and out, what you'll have to do for a circular frame, you'll actually have to cut off half of this. I know it seems extreme, but it will be fine. It'll hold the photo in place. I suppose you could use that for another one, since it's a half. You can do this one of 2 ways. You can add it in with some liquid clay and then bake it again, or you can just use super glue. So I'm going to go that route. Remember, with glues like this, less is better. It's not necessary to have a lot, just enough to hold it in place. Get that positioned. Okay, and see the photo just sits in there like that. Now, if you want to be taking your photos in and out, what you'll want to do is cut off some of this up here, just so you can get your finger in and pull it out. In fact, this is kind of a mess right here, so I think I'll just cut that off. So maybe like a ½ inch. There. Then this gets glued onto this half circle, half of a ring shape. There we go. And now slip that right in there. And there we go. If you want, you could cut some plastic packaging to make a little protector. Add whatever you want to the back for a hanger, and you have the cutest little photo frame made with the waves border. Of course, if you were doing this square, you wouldn't have to cut off half of your backing. You'd only have to cut the slot out of the top so that you could put your photo in. Here they are, all done. This one I antiqued with white paint. I'd highly suggest you do your antiquing before you add your frame to your backing pieces. It'll make much less of a mess, but I think it came out super cute. And this one, the one I did in white clay, I antiqued with the flat metallic sapphire blue paint that came in the October Create Along box, and I really love the way that came out. This one I did just a little differently. I used an oval cutter instead of cutting that off. The idea is just to give you a way to get at the photo once you put it in there so you can change it out. And I also glued that half ring onto the backing first, just because it can easily stretch out of shape. So I figured this way I would be sure to have the correct shape before I glue this on. You can easily do this in a rectangular or a square shape. You would just overlap your corners the same way that I did the edges, beveling both of them in opposite directions. And then you could make a frame as big as you wanted to. That would be a great use maybe for the wider one to make a bigger frame, or even layer them up. So many options. This is just a starting point for your creativity. Hope you enjoyed. Once again, this is Sandy Huntress for Create Along. Happy creating.